Welcome back to another episode of Today's Business Leaders. I'm Gabe Arnold, your host, and I'm very excited today because I have somebody that I'm really excited to talk to and interview on the show, Adam Liette. And so we're going to bring him on here in just a minute. He is the founder of Smooth Operations, and we got to meet each other through another program that we were in. And he's somebody that I've really enjoyed interacting with. Has a lot of experience in business and life. And so I'm very excited to have him share his wisdom with us today. So let's dive in. Welcome to the show, Adam. I'm really excited to have you here. I appreciate you taking time out of your day on a busy Monday to be here. And so thanks for being with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Gabe. It's I was geeking out a little bit because we get the chance to catch up. It's been a couple of months. So yeah, what a great opportunity to do it with people watching. So
exactly.
No better way of doing it.
Awesome. So there's a lot of things in your story and a lot of things I've observed about you that I want to dig into. But to start, when did you first realize that you were an entrepreneur?
I think it's new. Honestly, it's within these last couple of years. I had been a tactician, on the ground, getting stuff done guy for so long, and it was only in the last really year or two that I saw this vision of who, and it all came from discovering who I really was. You know, I'd been playing that game for, trying to be other people, thinking I was going to be an entrepreneur in this way or that way. And it never felt right, never felt really aligned until these last really 2 years. So I'm still navigating my sea legs with it a little bit, Gabe.
Yeah, it's definitely for all of us, it comes at different times. And I think in some senses, we're definitely born with the entrepreneurial spark, and like we have a lot of that inside of us, but it takes the right opportunities, the right education, the training experiences to get there. And so, as you mentioned, it's only been pretty recent, the last couple of years. Break down like some of what your path has been like, what your journey's been like, of where you started out. I know you were in the U.S. Army Special Operations, which I'm curious to hear a little bit about that. But I also know you were a director of operations in another company. So tell me about kind of how it took some time to realize it, but I think from what I've observed around you, watching you've already been entrepreneurial before that. So tell me a little bit about what the journey was to get you to where you are today.
Man, the journey started with a 13-year-old with a bad haircut and a guitar. I was that music kid, playing in garage bands when I was a very young man and playing in bars by the time I was 14. I couldn't even drink. It was great. But I was playing in all these clubs. And so music was my thing. I was the music guy in school playing rock and roll. And that led me to, hey, I should do this for a living, go figure, right? So went to music school, got a degree in music education. And like all people that get a degree in music education, I joined the Army immediately afterwards. Seemed to be the next logical step, right? Spent a couple of years in the Army bands, which was really interesting. I played trumpet for Uncle Sam, got to go to Afghanistan, play taps at funerals all over the country. And about 5 years in, I got recruited into special ops, which is a whole nother, that's kind of like that's where the journey really took this. It got supercharged, was becoming a special operator. The training itself is like 14 months long. It's insane. But it was that first time in my life where my alpha male and my high D personality was really able to come through in this really amazing way. And I ended up spending 8 years in that field, deployed all over the world, was running small teams, large teams, going solo operations, stuff I can't always talk about freely in this type of a forum, as you can imagine. Yeah. And that was 8 years of my life. And my wife, her and I had an agreement. She had to agree to this career move. And it meant saying goodbye to her husband for about 7 to 8 months a year. But she's like, well, okay, that's great. It's a 6-year contract. That's all you get. We're done after this. So, okay, that's more than fair. So I started okay, well, I have to get another degree, right? I was, still young, dumb, thinking I needed degrees to do things. Um, so I ended up getting an MBA with this vision of Fortune 500, wearing a suit every day. Obviously, life has made some moves since then.
Yeah.
Um, and it was during that time period, the latter parts of my years in special ops, I've discovered Upwork. And I wanted to start getting my portfolio together, getting ready for the transition. And I got to do my first Facebook ad, and I knew how there's like no bureaucracy. This is crazy. I can just like have an idea and deploy it. This is insane. So I fell in love with the whole online marketing industry, which led me down the Russell Brunson rabbit hole and podcast and led to this whole journey here. I ended up taking a job straight out the gate with a music education company. So things came full circle back to music. And that company is called Musical U. I became our first director of operations, grew the team from 4 to 20, increased our revenue by 6x over my time in that seat. And it was amazing. It was one of the most pivotal times in my life. But what did I really discover? I discovered I was an operator. I discovered that personality type that had always been dormant in me.
Yeah.
And when it came out, it was like, dude, I cannot turn this off. Like, and yeah. But I still had this, what it inspired was this inner drive to give back. I was seeing all these other business owners going through the same stuff I had been going through 6 months, 12 months, 18 months ago. Mm-hmm. I was like, there's so much to give. And it led me down this entrepreneurial journey of being a coach for operators, helping people get their business operations to the place where we're not working in our business, we're working on our business. And it's still pretty new. I'm only a couple months in, but wow, it took off like a rocket ship. So it's been a really fun journey.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I played a ton of music as a teenager too. And I realized when I was like 16 or 17, because I'd played some pretty big shows by that time, that I was like, I don't know how I'm going to make any money at this. So it's a pretty, I super enjoy it. I'm still a huge music junkie, and I still can play a little bit. I don't practice anywhere near enough to be decent anymore. But
I did open up for a band in your neck of the woods. I opened up for Mushroom Head once.
Wow.
Which was cool.
Nice.
Yeah. At the Agora in Cleveland. That was awesome.
That's awesome. Yeah. The band I was in ended up opening up for 30 Seconds from Mars, and that was about as close as I got to fame. So, but yeah, that was pretty exciting. So, yeah. And we both met through Alex Scharfen's program with his company, Simple Operations. And so, can you explain what an operator is? Because I don't know if everybody knows what that means if they're not in Alex's world.
Yeah, and it's one of my favorite topics. Thanks for asking. There's an operator. How to describe? I think there's this misinterpretation of what the second in command in a company has to be, and I blame it all on a rocket. And I'll just leave it there. But like, what do we think of as an integrator? An integrator is just that person that does, and that's great. And that is scalable to a degree. Mm-hmm. But what an operator really does is we are about 60% tactician, 40% visionary. So we have that entrepreneurial spirit in us. We can see the bigger picture. We can help dream that big vision and start thinking strategically. In addition, we can then flip that switch and work tactically as well. So we're the misfits in between a pure integrator and a pure visionary entrepreneur. We're that glue that holds the two together.
Yeah, that's an excellent definition. I have to tell Alex to check that out, because when I first heard it, I didn't really understand. I was like, well, I've had COOs, I've had big titles, I've had general managers and things like that, but it was missing part of it. And now that I've, fully implemented, the system, from Alex with my operator and everything, it definitely works a lot better. And it does bridge that gap, because having an integrator is not really all you need. And, if you're just a visionary, which most entrepreneurs are super visionary, there's a huge gap between your vision and how it's going to be implemented. And so when I realized, how to implement that, my operator, Danielle, is awesome, because she has some of that visionary, but she's super tactical, like you just described. But also I've noticed with a lot of operators that I've met through being in the program and in Alex's community, a lot of them do have some entrepreneurial stuff going on the side, or they definitely have the entrepreneurial spirit. And so it's it's definitely a perfect match because they understand what the entrepreneur is going through, but they are often stronger and better at the day-to-day implementation.
Mhm.
And so, what? Tell me about what your company does, Smooth Operations, because I'm really curious to because this is something that if it was around a year ago, I would have probably been working with you just because I think that I felt like I overwhelmed my team with implementing a system that works really well, but I just trusted that they would figure it out, and they did, which was awesome. I have a great team,
Mhm.
but I definitely saw some I felt insecure about how maybe I wasn't giving them the support they needed. So tell me about what you do on your side of your company.
So it's a number of different things that I teach. The first is a planning system, like how to actually start at a strategic vision and then break it down into tangible. I can do this right now. I find entrepreneurs are either good at thinking strategically but not figuring out the what now, or they're good at what now without the strategic. What does this lead to?
Yeah.
So I use a system that I developed, and well, not I borrowed from the military. It's the same type of thing that we used to use when planning special operations.
Yeah.
Special operations, by their very nature, don't have end dates. We're constantly looking at long-term application, and we do this through something that we call lines of effort. And when you're working in a line of effort, you're thinking that what is that 10, 15-year vision of what this line of effort could move towards? And we're constantly revising it. So there's an annual revision process that we go through, and then we break it down linearly on a graph into like, okay, well, this then becomes a line of operation within that line of effort. So within the line of effort, you could have multiple lines of operation that you're working on, and then just starting to break it down just quarterly into monthlies. So that's really the first way that we start breaking down how to think in a strategic way, and then break it down into tactical application. The biggest thing, though, I teach is communication, and really how to build a team structure where there's support all around, and how to make this easy on you as the operator so it's something that's manageable, where you have scheduled interactions, you have scheduled meetings, you have daily routines that you're running through to communicate with your team, not only in a downward, pushing information down, but also creating the conduits for information to flow back up to you and through you up to the CEO with the information that they need. They don't need all the information. A lot of that's going to be retained by us in the operator role, and
Yeah.
that's perfectly fine. But having that conduit, even then from me, the operator, up to the CEO, and just having it in a very clear, tangible, and most importantly, predictable way. Because if we leave it to chance, it never gets done, right?
Yep.
It must be scheduled. It must be something that is routine. Because I don't know about any of y'all, like I can't live without my roadmap, without my planner telling me what to do.
Yeah.
And when it's there right in front of us, it all becomes somehow easier. Like I never thought I'd love a to-do list, but I truly geek out on knowing exactly what I'm doing to start every day.
Yeah. No, it's super powerful, and at first for me is like an entrepreneur, it's like it feels very constraining, and it feels like it's going to hold me back from how I operate, because I think when we start in business, we're kind of dropped into the battle. We're trying to figure things out. We figure it out as we go. We have a smaller team size, and so communication works easily and more effortlessly, because with a small group, like there's no communication overhead with 3 or 4 people, or it's very, very low. But then as we mature and our business grows, I think it's becoming clearer to me, even in the season I'm in now, that like my ability to have strong strategic planning and then just do exactly what you said of breaking it down to quarters, to months, to weeks is really crucial. And I've realized that I do 2 things. One is I kind of just float through my objectives in a little bit of a haphazard way and just kind of pick and choose what I want to do day to day. And I do accomplish a lot and it gets done, but there's a huge lack of efficiency there that I can improve on. So I tend to just kind of drift around. And the other thing, and I'm drifting in the right direction, which is good, but that's how it feels inside sometimes. And then the other things that I realized just recently in the last couple of weeks actually too is I don't always clearly communicate the why behind the objective or the ask, and then there's no there's no buy-in, there's no follow through, there's less effort from my operator, from my team, whoever's involved in whatever projects I'm touching, because I'm not clear on explaining the why and the reasoning behind it. And I mean, I think everybody's, probably heard like you need to explain the why, but I'm just in the middle of realizing that I don't do that super effectively. And so there's a lack of motivation and connection, and everything just kind of falls apart. And sometimes it's because I don't know why, which is the worst. And oftentimes it's because I just made the assumption, oh, everybody knows what's in my head. So what kind of situations have you been in, Adam, where you've probably seen some of those things happen before, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Give us an example of when that happened and like what you worked through, either if you were the operator or you helped somebody through that process. Like explain that, because I think it creates frustration for the team, frustration for the entrepreneur, because we're just not using the right tools and approaches. And I'm curious how you resolve those kind of things, or what you've learned in that kind of scenario.
I mean, yeah, we've all experienced it, and it's all quite painful when we do. Yeah. I can tell you, I was in that same boat of having a vision, having this idea, like, here's what we need to do, and not communicating the why. And so probably the clearest cut example I can make is about a year and a half ago at Musical U, we were going through this really ambitious product creation phase for this year-long program that we were putting out. And I had in my vision was like a content producing factory where things would move in sequence from one department to another. And it all made perfect good sense in my brain, right? But my head of content, my head educator on the team, was very much accustomed to, yeah, well, if something isn't shipped until next week, I can just get in there right now, without realizing, no, in my system that I had devised to make this work on a tactical level, that doesn't work. And we ended up just like going through this like months long headbutting, hating each other secretly, like meeting each other ourselves on Zoom to say curse words, that kind of tension was existing on the team until I realized I never told him like really why this matters. And like how actually, if he follows my system and he follows me and trusts me, what it's going to do for him, it's going to actually clear up a whole lot of clutter from his brain. Yeah. And when I can make the benefits about him, that's the key to part of the why. There's the big why in terms of what it can do for your company. Yeah, we all got to do that. And that's part of being a visionary. But when you get to the tactical level, the why has to be why this is good for you. Yeah. Why you, the employee, need to trust me because this is going to help you. Once you can break it down to that level, then what are you doing? You're giving them a purely selfish reason to follow you and say, yes, I'm going to do what Adam told me to do because it's going to make my life better. So hard lesson learned. We ended up getting it. Had to beat my head against the wall for a couple more months. But once he understood the why it was good for him, well, we were rolling.
Yeah, that's a good point. And is there a mechanism or process or a specific tool that you, having gone through that experience, that you use now to try to prevent yourself from skipping the why or skipping those steps? Because that's where I'm realizing, this is all about me today, sorry, but that's where I'm realizing, no, not really. I think for everybody, it would be worth knowing, like, I'm realizing that that's where I fall down a lot. Like I had 2 instances in the last 24 hours, no, 3, that I was like, man, I didn't explain why. I didn't give clear instruction there. So then the details were missed because they didn't understand the importance of what was going on in a couple of cases. And then in another case, I just didn't explain things well. And I put stress on a team member because they were doing something for the wrong why, for the wrong reason. So I'm curious, like, what methods or tools you've used to make that a strong process instead of just like a mental reminder, oh yeah, I should probably explain the why. There's probably something more to it than that, I would assume.
For sure. So 2 things that I got so many ideas, but let me share the 2 easiest ones. Yeah. The first is this little phone that we have is a secret weapon. You have this wonderful thing in your phone called voice record or whatever you have on yours. I don't go into a meeting, into any kind of agenda without practicing, without rehearsing what I'm going to say. and I will walk paces in my office. It's a good thing there's the only camera in this office, because I probably look like a crazy person walking around talking on my cell phone.
Yeah.
But I will talk through my delivery, and I will listen back to it, and I will try to put myself in the perspective of that person receiving it, to find those holes. I'll fill in the holes, and then I'll rehearse it again. So I never get into the situation like that without doing it 2 or 3 times, just me solo in the office. Then once you do deliver your brief, once you tell the person what they need to be doing or what needs to happen on the team, ask for a back brief. Like, okay, you've just heard everything. What did you get out of this? What's the first steps that you need to take? And even ask them then, and why is this important?
I like that. Yeah, that's a good reminder too. I think as entrepreneurs, we're like all about the action, and we just want to jump in, and sometimes we miss those opportunities to really refine what we're going to deliver, and we give ourselves exponentially more time if we're willing to invest a little time up front and be clear in our communication. And so that's wise. I can definitely implement that. What are the other things that you've noticed, like in the operator seat, that you now, support those operators, that are common problems that come up, or things that they, struggle with or don't know how to resolve with an entrepreneur or their team, or what are the other kind of holes that you see that are common challenges?
The most common challenge is the most difficult one for most of us to accept. And it's that we are in the people business first. Our employees, our team members, our CEOs, our partners, our people. And people, we're complex human beings. We have problems, we have celebrations, we have despairs, we have joy, we have every emotion under the sun. And you, in your role as the operator, are going to get the brunt of all of it.
Yeah.
You are going to receive it. You're going to have to deliver it. It's emotional, right? It is tough working, I don't want to say dealing with people, because that has a negative connotation, but being a leader of people requires you to give a shit about their emotions.
Yep.
To take an active role, and in some ways responsibility for their emotional health.
Yeah.
And what does that end up meaning in the moment? It means sometimes just shutting up and listening. What I've found so often is that when you have areas of opportunity and open hours where your team members can come to you, I've had so many encounters where I'm chatting with someone on Slack, and I see the channel. I'm like, something's not right with this guy. I can tell, like, the way he's texting, like something's not right. I'm like, hey dude, you want to jump on a call quick?
Yeah.
And it takes 10 minutes of my time, but all I do is I just open up the call and say, hey man, what's up? And then they just go. And I mute and I shut up and I just listen. So often what our team members really need is just someone to be an active listener.
Yeah.
And just to hear what they're saying. They don't expect you to solve their problems, but just by being that person on the line to allow them to offload what they got.
Yeah.
And sometimes just saying something out loud, it's so freeing, right? I mean, we can say it out loud to ourselves, but we're not saying it to another person. So being in that role and understanding your team members not expecting you to always solve everything, but sometimes just asking a couple questions along the way, get them to open up a little bit more. And then the crazy thing that's going to happen, they'll be like, oh, well, I think I know how to fix this now. Thanks, man. You really helped me. I'm like, I didn't do anything. All I did was sit here and listen, and you solved it yourself. But being an emotional leader, it takes work, it takes effort, and it's something that falls into our plate. So with that, I would say not only be open to it, but find your own way to then take that energy that's going to build up through that encounter and find a way to release it, because otherwise you're going to carry that. And we don't need all that crap, right? Yeah. So figure out a way to release it. It's different for everyone. For me, I got a workshop right next to my office. I do carpentry, and a lot of negative energy has gotten released through hand sanding furniture.
That's excellent advice, Adam. I really like you said, like, be the emotional leader to them. And I think in the past, I probably would have heard that differently, like being an emotional leader or being an emotional leader for, the people that are around you. And I totally agree. Like, the active listening is just a huge part of it. and I can see your intention and how you show up in those situations, because it's easy for me to show up and like, what's the problem? Great, I'll tell you how to solve it. But that doesn't actually solve their problem.
Yeah.
Because dictating to somebody, or just telling them what to do isn't going to help them grow, or move through that we're going through. And that's often not at all what they need. Fortunately, over the years, I've learned that with my fiance Rachel. Like, I'll ask her, like, do you want me just to listen, or do you want my advice today? I'm good either way, and so like that's been productive there. And I think I can apply that same thing in business, like you said. And then the other thing you share that's really important is finding a way to release all that energy, because we do pick up and carry a lot of weight from all the people we're interacting with, especially if we show up and serve them that way. And so that's definitely healthy advice, because otherwise, I know I've experienced, I assume you have too, like if you let that build up, then you can destroy anything you built in trust by just being reactionary or getting angry or saying something stupid that they shouldn't have said. At least I've said that.
Yeah.
So and so yeah,
what's the old there's a joke I've seen on Facebook lately. It's like, how do I respond to negative Facebook comments? I write what I really think, and then I delete it, and I close the app.
Yep.
Like, sometimes it is a matter of like writing what you really think or saying what you really think, and then deleting it.
Yeah.
And okay, done. I will say, it's so funny to me. Like, if you would have told alpha male 8 years ago, Sergeant First Class Adam Liette, United States Army, that I'd be proud that one of my team members said, dude, you made a safe space for me. Like, I would have kicked my own ass 8 years ago. And now I'm bragging about it on podcasts and in my program.
Yeah.
So it's funny how life takes us on that route.
Yeah, I think life softens us up and teaches us, things on some fronts and toughens us up on other fronts. But I know what you mean. If I look back 10, 15, 20 years, there's some things that I, would never expect I'm doing now. And there's some things I look back and like, man, if I would have known better, I should have handled that better. Yeah, it's definitely key. And you're right. It's all about, we're all in the people business, and it's easy to forget that in the middle of, adversity, in the middle of a conflict with somebody, in the middle of pressure or the due dates we have. And is there anything on that front that helps you kind of like re-anchor or bring yourself back into that state of being open to listen and, and being where you can really be that emotional leader that the team needs?
I mean, a lot of it is, it's a lot of self-care. Honestly, like the number one thing you can do for yourself to make yourself better at this is journal, read, read things like the what's the book on the love languages, right? Or, I mean, it's all this curriculum you're building up a repository of knowledge, but you're also girding yourself. So when we take the time out of our day, oh, it's my selfish time. Nope. It's you creating the warrior you need to be, because I'm not going to be the guy I need to be unless I go and sweat in the morning. Like, I gotta pump some iron that gets me up for my day.
Yeah.
I have to journal. I need my meditation time. All of that stuff makes me who I need to be. So if you don't have routines, if you don't have a clear way of preparing for interactions, for meetings, for the day itself, find what gives you strength. And through that repetition and routine, you're going to find yourself showing up consistently for your team.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good advice. I like what you shared about self-care there. I've been saying recently, like, self-care is the ticket to 7 figures and beyond. And if you really realize, like, if you show up in that centered, healthy state, you can operate in a responsive manner. You can identify things. You can really show up for the team. Where there's plenty of times where I've been burnout, overwhelmed, haven't managed my own stuff, and then I just show up and I'm reactionary, and that creates fear and problems and breaks things, compared to like just showing up in a more neutral state and just being able to listen and guide and not think that whatever emergency of the day needs to drive the attitudes and behaviors. We're going to encounter those things every day regardless. It's just how we approach them, right?
It's like the worst Army leaders I ever worked with were completely reactionary, and they're way worse than your worst business leaders you've ever worked with, trust me. But
I can imagine in that scenario.
The crazy thing is, me on a personal level, like that self-care routine and that taking care of myself and guiding my, finding that center.
Mm-hmm.
I had pretty bad PTSD till about 18 months ago.
Wow.
I didn't go get psychological treatment. I just got centered.
Wow.
And when I'm centered, I'm good. I can
Yeah.
conquer anything because I'm starting from here. And that's this foundation you're building and this strength. And the great thing is you keep building it, right? And you just get stronger and stronger and stronger. We're building the person that we need to be today, so to be the person we can be in the future. But you're always building. And this is all, as you may notice if you're listening, like Gabe and I are really like motivating ourselves to keep doing this, really.
Exactly. It's still hard every day. Like there's plenty of days where I'm like not quite where I want to be with self-care, not quite with my routines. And I remind myself, like, there's going to be ups and down days. There's going to be times where I'm really on it. There's going to be other times where it feels like it's falling off, but showing up and recommitting to it and doing the self-care practices when it's hard to stick in the routine, or doing the difficult things, working out every day is not something that, people necessarily love doing, but it's a great way to, really take care of your mind and body, and helps you release energy and emotions and things like that. And so it's definitely important to remember too, that like, just because you see somebody else doing something consistently, it doesn't necessarily mean it's easy for them every day either. They just understand the value that they're getting out of it after the fact. So
the easy thing would be to just sit on the couch and watch Netflix, but I've actually tried that, and that's not easy. I don't know how people do it. Like that takes some damn commitment.
Yeah. Yeah. And whatever direction we, invest our time and energy is the result we get. And so I have something written on my desk that says, "Will my future self thank me for this decision?" And I need to read and remind myself of it every day, which is why it's there. And it's like in the moments where it's like, you don't want to get up early, or you don't want to confront this problem, or you don't want to work on this thing. It's like, delaying those things only stalls our growth and doesn't really take us where we want to be. Whereas if we're willing to commit and show up and be consistent, then incrementally we keep getting, closer and closer to our next goal and our next target. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Awesome.
Terrific. Well, I appreciate you sharing this, Adam. I'm really excited, about your journey into entrepreneurship and all the value that you've added in this space for many years now. Where can people find out about what you're up to and connect with you?
Awesome. Well, I have a show of my own. It's called the Smooth Operator Podcast. Awesome. And it's a whole lot of fun putting that together. So we dive deep into a lot of the tactical, how to do this, that in business. So you can find that at my website. It's adamliette.com, or just Google the Smooth Operator Podcast on your favorite podcast feed directory. Awesome. Yeah, that's the right word. Yes.
Cool. So we will definitely share that in the show notes. I appreciate you being on today, Adam, and we'll definitely have you back on another 6 months to a year here and see where things are at. But thank you for your time today. I appreciate you.
Likewise. Same to you, Gabe. It's been a whole lot of fun. Thanks so much, and talk soon.
Thanks.